We all know that high triglyceride levels is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease and metabolic syndrome. Does that mean that we should consume less fats? What if it is not about consumption, but it is about your biochemistry, what your microbiome is doing, right? So before we get into the basic biochemistry behind what causes high triglyceride levels, let us understand, the forms of fatty acids. So we have basically three forms of fatty acids. One is short chain fatty acid, which is actually produced by your gut microbes when you consume, dietary fiber and inulin, right? So these gut microbes produce something called butyrate, acetate, and propionate, which is really beneficial for your metabolic health, right? Then we have medium chain fatty acids, which are basically coconut oil and MCT oil, which actually bypasses your normal digestion process and goes to the liver where liver chops these fatty acids and convert into ketone bodies. And these ketone bodies are super fuel for your mitochondria. So it improves the efficiency of these ketone bodies, improves the efficiency of your mitochondria. And it is also found that ketone bodies actually modulate genes expression, which are associated with longevity and cellular resilience, right? And third, and the most important is, the long chain fatty acids. Now, we have different long chain fatty acids. For instance, we have C15, which is pentadecanoic acid. Then we have C16, which is palmitic acid. And then we have C18, which is called stearic acid. Now, C15 is an odd chain saturated fatty acid, and it is most essential fatty acid as it actually integrates into your cell membrane, right? It it activates AMPK, it activates PPAR alpha, it actually inhibits mTOR and inhibits DAXSTAT. So it is a key molecule for your overall longevity, right? So C15 can be incorporated into your cell. It is actually incorporated in your cell membrane. It forms part of complex lipid, right? And then it could also be broken down into free fatty acids that is used to activate AMPK and PPAR, right? And all of these longevity pathways, right? Then we have C16, which is palmitic acid, which is really harmful, which is pro-inflammatory, right? And which actually is associated with obesity and cardiovascular diseases. And then we have, stearic acid, which is said to be beneficial because it promotes mitochondrial health and also prevents fatty liver, right? So these are the form of fatty acids, and we need to understand each of these forms of these fatty acids because our body interacts with them in a very, with each of them in a very unique way, right? Now, let us understand the biochemistry. So when we are consuming fatty acids, your liver actually, synthesizes these fatty acids and convert them to triglycerides. Now, these triglycerides are either stored in cytoplasmic lipid droplets, right, where these lipid droplets have a very important role as they regulate cellular processes. They, inhibit uh, lipid toxicity. These lipids act as a precursor for synthesis of new membranes, right? These lipid droplets helps in reducing unfolded protein response. So these have a lot of beneficial cellular benefits, functions. It impacts various beneficial cellular functions, right? Then some of these triglycerides are actually packaged with VLDL and transported to different tissues, including adipose tissue and other tissues. And again, at the time of energy needs, these are a specific enzyme lipase actually breaks triglycerides down into fatty acids, which is used for energy, right? So, these lipase actually breaks down C15, C16, C18, all of them, right? And again, when it breaks down C15, these free fatty acids are used to activate AMPK and other longevity pathways, right? So there's a normal process of, regulating your triglyceride levels now. So if this is the case, what causes high triglyceride levels? Is it lack of exercise? Is it consumption of high fats? Is it consumption of high carbohydrates? Right? These could be factors, right? But there are numerous other biochemical pathways that could lead to, high triglyceride levels. And here comes the role of your microbiome. So your gut microbiome could produce butyrate, which is short chain fatty acids as discussed, and butyrate actually activates AMPK and it reduces your triglyceride levels. then your gut oral microbes could produce something called TMAO, which is a byproduct of gut microbes and oral microbes synthesizing choline. Now, the choline is required for regulating your triglyceride levels. And since your gut and oral microbe use choline to produce TMAO, there's a choline deficiency, and this leads to high triglyceride levels. Then your gut microbiome or oral microbiome could produce lipopolysaccharides, LPS, that inhibits activity of lipase, and this leads to high synthesis of triglycerides and lower clearance of triglycerides, and this leads to high triglyceride levels. Similarly, pentadecanoic acid C15 is actually activates AMPK and reduces your triglyceride levels. And nitric oxide, which is again a signaling molecule produced by your oral bacteria, it actually regulates your glucose uptake and reduces your triglyceride levels. While if your gut oral microbiome is producing uric acid, which actually suppresses nitric oxide and raises your triglyceride levels. So when it comes to regulating your triglyceride levels, you have to understand your entire biochemistry. Just by falling for these fitness influencers, they're saying that consume less, burn your fat, or just exercise. These could be ways, but these are not the only. Lack of exercise is not the only reason for high triglyceride levels. You have to understand your entire whole microbial biochemistry, cellular biochemistry, what your gut microbiome is doing, what your oral microbiome is doing, how they are actually modulating your triglyceride level. Is these understanding these things are very important if you really want to prevent the onset of cardiovascular disease and metabolic syndrome, right? So do not fall for these recommendations that just by exercise or just by consuming less fats is it is uh, going to reduce your triglyceride levels. There may be other reasons, right? Even when you are exercising, you are consuming right amount of fats, healthy fats, still your triglycerides may be high, and it may be because of your interaction between your microbiome and these fatty acids. So understand this biochemistry before falling for these wrong claims.